Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Kat. So for today's video, I'm gonna be doing a book review. I haven't done a book review in a while, so I figured why not do one, and I just read a book maybe a couple weeks ago and I was not a fan and I just kind of wanted to talk about it. So it's gonna be like a review slash rant about why I did not like this book. The book in question is Vampires, Hearts, and Other Dead Things. This is by Margie Fuston. This book I gave a 2.0 star rating. So this book follows Victoria, who lives in a world where vampires exist and they are hiding from humans. Victoria and her dad are huge fans of vampires. They've watched every vampire movie, like know every little fact and tidbit about vampires. So they're huge vampire fanatics. Victoria and her family find out that her dad has terminal cancer and he is dying and he's not responding to any more medications or therapy. Victoria's dad urges Victoria to go to New Orleans because that was a trip that they planned together, but since he can't go to that trip anymore, he still wanted her to go. But Victoria had other ideas in mind. For her, she wanted to go to New Orleans to find a vampire. She wanted to find a vampire so the vampire can turn her into a vampire and then she can turn her dad into a vampire and that way he won't die. Her old friend Henry, who she has a thing with, also accompanies her on her trip to New Orleans so she isn't alone on this whole journey. So that's basically what the book is about. Victoria goes to New Orleans, tries to find a vampire to turn her into a vampire so she can turn her dad into a vampire and they can live immortally together. There's a lot of things wrong with this book. This book was so difficult to get through, but I did anyway. I don't mean to be so harsh and critical when it comes to talking about books I don't like. And again, no attack on the author, but this book, this author's work, was not great. The whole idea of vampires existing in the human world and hiding from humans and all that stuff, I thought that was pretty interesting and it could have been expanded on. There's so many different directions that the author could have gone with that concept and that idea, but what really made this book ridiculous were the characters, especially the main character Victoria. She was beyond ridiculous. She was the epitome of ridiculousness and selfishness and rudeness. So Victoria is a very selfish and rude character. Straight off the bat, first few pages I read this from her point of view. The whole book is from her point of view, unfortunately. But reading the first few pages, I already grasped the kind of character she is. Victoria is rude to her friend Henry, who accompanied her on this trip to New Orleans. She's been mean to him throughout the whole trip. I don't even know, their chemistry is just bullshit, excuse my language, but it really is. It was crap. I don't even know if you'd call it chemistry. It's so weird because she likes him, but then she pushes him away, keeps him at a distance, but expects his support on her mission of finding a vampire, even though Henry thinks that it's ridiculous for her to even do this. But then she is so rude and cold towards her, and she constantly reminds him that he does not understand her pain of what she's going through because of her father dying. Granted, she's a grieving daughter, right? She has a very close bond with her dad, so she's on this mission to try to save his life no matter what. And a lot of people can probably understand that when they're losing or lost a loved one, the grief can consume you and can make you do some crazy things. And when you're grieving a loved one or a loved one's impending death, you would do anything to save them and make them live a little longer. So I get that, but I feel like in this book she's used her grief as a way to be rude. And it's really complicated. Grief is such a complicated emotion because there's no right way to express and process grief. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. There's just grieving and processing grief however you may have to. But I feel like Victoria just uses grief as a disguise instead of an emotion, a process that she has to go through. Like, she's rude to Henry, who clearly likes her too, and I don't know why. Henry literally just takes it. She lashes out on him whenever he doesn't support her or doesn't do what she wants him to do. She lashes out on him and he just keeps crawling back to her. Like, he has no backbone, no spine, and it's just sad to see that. It really is. Also, when Victoria and Henry land in New Orleans, she does encounter somebody who she thinks is a vampire. And she told this person that she wants to turn into a vampire. And this guy, whose name is Nicholas, instead of turning her into a vampire, he presents her with a set of challenges to make her fall back in love with life again. I don't know. The challenges that Nicholas left for her were so dumb and stupid. Like, it made me kind of hate life. I wouldn't fall in love with life if I had to do these challenges. I'd kind of hate my life. Victoria believes that Nicholas is a vampire, and she sets out and tries to complete these challenges as a way to kind of prove to him that she does love her life, even though she wants to give up her life to become an immortal vampire. I don't get the logic, but sure. She is so set on completing these challenges so she can turn into a vampire and save her dad that she was willing to even risk Henry's life for a clue card for the next challenge. She expects Henry to understand, even though she risked his life. At the end of the book, we find out that Nicholas is actually not the vampire, but the group that he hangs out with, there is an actual vampire in that group. And when Victoria traded Henry's life for a clue card, that vampire drank Henry's blood. So, she almost had her friend killed. And of course, she doesn't care, because she's doing it for her dad. So the book had potential, I truly believe, but the characters are really what brought it down. And it's just so hard to kind of even critique this because there's grief in here. And grief is really hard to critique. Because everybody feels it differently and experiences it differently. There are people who can probably relate to her, but what I just could not grasp is how extremely rude she is, or she was, to Henry, who was just trying to support her and be there for her. And all she did was play this push and pull game with him. It was just plain ridiculous. Her selfishness had no bounds. She was willing to do anything behind the pretense of saving her dad's life, but really she was just being selfish, and she just wanted everybody to understand her, but at the same time she always brought up the fact that no one can understand her. So it's this weird contradiction at play too. The writing, it's hard because this whole book was from Victoria's point of view, so I didn't like anything written in this book. The writing itself was okay. It was just mediocre. It was just okay. It wasn't terrible. But having this whole book from the point of view of my least favorite character was a little hard. Victoria was also written out to be like a tough girl who has to hide her emotions, and she wasn't like the other girls, and she had to reel in her emotions. She couldn't show emotions because emotions are a sign of weakness, and that nobody can understand what that feels like, and nobody can hold down emotions as well as she can. Literally all that's written in the book. I'm not interpreting it. It's in the book. She's portrayed to be this tough, emotionless girl, but in no way, shape, or form am I convinced. There's no way I'm convinced that she's this tough, confident chick. I cannot be convinced of that because it's not here. It doesn't add up. There are no scenes, there is nothing that she's done that would that convinced me that she was this confident, assertive girl. You know, I just could not really believe it, even though it was all written, you know, she's written as to be confident. It wasn't convincing. Her chemistry with Henry was trash. Not convincing at all. Like, their chemistry, what chemistry? Really, what chemistry? Nicholas, who we find out at the end isn't even a vampire, he was a joke, literally a joke of a character. Like, him being in here, him being portrayed the way he was portrayed, he has it was ridiculous. He has absolutely no personality. I don't understand. Like, I wish he could have been portrayed better, or at least I wish he would have some more depth of personality to him, but he didn't. I mean, I wish all the characters in this book had more depth and personality to them, but they didn't, so there's that. The saving grace to this book was towards the end, the last moments that Victoria's dad had with his family before he passed away. All of that was very sincere and genuine, and it hit a little too close to home for me, so it drew out some emotions. The very, very ending part when Victoria's dad does pass away, that part was very sentimental. Aside from that, everything else in the book was not. Although the book could have gone in a better direction, it went in a terrible direction because these characters were written so poorly. Victoria would use her grief and sadness as a justification to be angry, to be rude, to be selfish. And she wants the whole world to sympathize with her and feel sorry for her. But the harsh reality and the harsh truth is that the world doesn't owe you anything. That's the harsh truth. You can be going through some of the worst moments of your life. You can be going through something very traumatic. The world still does not owe you anything. I mean, people can be sympathetic towards you, and that is always a plus, but no one owes you anything. And I feel like with Victoria, she feels like everybody needs to be on her side. Everybody needs to understand why she loves vampires, even though her obsession with vampires is very juvenile. Everybody needs to support her mission. Everybody needs to see things from her point of view. Everybody needs to know that she's doing this for her dad. Like, she needed everybody on her side. And when people were trying to be on her side, such as Henry, her mom, her sister, Victoria would push them away. Even though she has a complicated relationship with her mom and sister, they were still trying to be there for her, but Victoria did not want that until the very end. But in the beginning, she would push them away, so it was very annoying to read that. That's my little rant / review of this book. It was more of a rant. Like, honestly, it was just me ranting about this book, but let's disguise it as a review. I had high hopes for this book because the premise seemed pretty interesting until I read it. Then I just could not do it. But I got through it. I finished the book. I gave this book a 2.0 star rating, which is honestly not even the lowest rating I've given a book. To anybody who wants to read this book, do it, go for it. But just a forewarning, the main character might annoy you. She might infuriate you. So be warned. If you have read this book, please let me know what you think. Honest opinions only. Let me know what you think of this book. Hopefully you're having a wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.